During our lives, we come in contact with people who we recognize as being extremely gifted. They are talented. And so talented. I knew an individual when I was younger of an individual. He could speak 6 or 7 languages. He would just pick them up just like that. And I also knew a fellow who could play. I never saw him pick up a musical instrument he could not play. Guitar, piano, horns, everything. Harp. He could play it all. So talented. Just in the normal course of events, many men and women are born with remarkable gifts, remarkable talents, but occasionally, on occasion, in a way that almost transcends nature, a single person comes along and they are gifted, they are talented beyond even belief. That would be the case for the man named Leonardo da Vinci. He towered above all other artists. Da Vinci was considered a genius. Did you know he was considered a genius in 11 categories? If we are a genius in one, that's tremendous. He was a genius. They considered that he was a genius in art, science, math, music, architecture, engineering, botany, anatomy, medicine, and he was also an unbelievable inventor. This is a self-portrait of Leonardo da Vinci when he was 60 years old in 1512. And it is Leonardo da Vinci that painted for us a picture, a painting that is considered by the world to be the most famous, the most recognized painting the world has ever known. It is the painting that we call the Last Supper. Now, this is a portion of it. I wanted to zero on a particular item, but the original painting was commissioned by Rome for the Santa Maria Monastery in Milan, Italy. Covers an entire wall in this monastery. The dining hall. The dining hall wall that Leonardo painted on, he painted a 15-foot tall, 29-foot wide painting. It's life-size. Unfortunately, the original, although quite a few restoration attempts have been tried through the years, the original has deteriorated to the point of no return. Today it's basically gone. Fortunately, 2 artists copied Da Vinci's work less than 20 years after he painted it, and so we can still look at it today. Da Vinci did take several liberties with his painting of the Last Supper. In other words, the actual Last Supper that Jesus and the disciples experienced does not look like what Da Vinci put on the wall. For example, Da Vinci put all 13 men sitting on one side of the table. That would have not been the case, would it? They would have been gathered around the table, surrounding the table. But in order to get everybody's face, Leonardo puts them all on one side because he's trying to capture a particular moment. But Da Vinci included in his painting that would not have existed at the actual event, and yet it is extremely intriguing to me. It involves the disciple Judas. He's in the picture. Da Vinci wrote that he wanted to catch the reactions of the 12 when Jesus announced that there was a betrayer at the table. And Da Vinci includes Judas. You see them in the red hair. He's looking right at Christ. And if you can see it on the screen and see what Da Vinci included, look at Judas's right elbow. He's got it on the table. And as he pulls back, as Jesus announces there is a betrayer at the table, if you can see it, Judas is knocking over a dish of salt. A dish of salt. Now, it would be a couple of more centuries before salt could be crystallized in a manner that we could use shakers instead of bowls or dishes. Back in Leonardo's day, you spooned your salt on your plate, or you pinched it and spread it on the food on your plate. You did not shake it out of a shaker. But in Da Vinci's day, there was a well-known phrase in Europe, and so he brought the salt to the table and let Judas knock it over. The well-known phrase in Europe, it was spilling the salt. Spilling the salt. We have phrases in our language that are very comparable in meaning to what spilling the salt meant in Europe in Leonardo da Vinci's day. Phrases like stabbed in the back, or sold down the river, bite the hand that feeds you. In other words, spilling the salt meant the betrayal of someone close to you. If you betrayed someone close, you spilt the salt. Betraying a friend, stabbed in the back, is what we would say today. But in Da Vinci's day, in Europe, you spilt the salt. And so Leonardo had Judas spilling the salt at the Last Supper. John chapter 13. Let's look at that verses 21 and 22 of John chapter 13. John records, when Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit and testified and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. The disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spoke. And Judas must have realized his secret is not so secret to Jesus. His secret that he had spilt the salt and betrayed his Lord is not a secret to Christ. It's an astounding moment. The outcome could have been very different for Judas. It did not have to be this way. Desire of Ages, page 717, and I've included this quote on the screen. Desire of Ages, page 717. Judas saw the sick, the lame, the blind flock to Jesus from the towns and cities. He saw the dying laid at his feet. He witnessed the Savior's mighty works in healing the sick, casting out devils, raising the dead. He felt, this is remarkable, he felt in his own person the evidence of Christ's power. He recognized the teaching of Christ as superior to all that he had ever heard. He loved the great teacher and desired to be with him. He felt a desire to be changed in character and life, and he hoped to experience this through connecting himself with Jesus. The Savior did not repulse Jesus. He gave him a place among the 12. He trusted him to do the work of an evangelist. He endowed him with power to heal the sick and to cast out devils. But, that's a big word here. But Judas did not come to the point of what? Surrendering. Come to the point of surrendering himself fully to Christ. And when Leonardo da Vinci thought of how he would depict Judas in his painting of the supper there in that dining hall, there on the wall, Leonardo depicted Judas as someone who spilt the salt, betraying his friend. In a few minutes, we're going to participate in the service of humility. And it was at that occasion where Judas was momentarily thrilled by the love of Jesus. Another quote from Desire of Ages, a few pages back on 645. Just a few words. Desire of Ages, page 645. When the Savior's hands were bathing those soiled feet and wiping them with the towel, the heart of Judas thrilled through and through with the impulse then and there to confess his sin. But, there's that word again. But he would not what? Humble himself. Organized crime in America 100 years ago was strongly influenced by several Italian families, and I certainly don't want to give a bad rap to Italians. Organized crime came from every culture, but for whatever reason, several Italian families were credited with a great part of the organized crime here in America. Italy, in one of its regional islands, Sicily, had a long history of organized crime long before it came to America. Even way back to Leonardo da Vinci's day, when a term was coined. The term was salt, S-A-L-T, salt hit. A salt hit. Came into existence in the early days of organized crime, way back 500 years ago in the days of Leonardo da Vinci. A salt hit was when a organization, a family, somebody hired an assassin to kill an individual. And they hired this particular hitman because he was a friend of the target. You see, a hitman who knows his target as a friend, as an acquaintance, he could get close to him, couldn't he? Without raising suspicion. Maybe even he was friendly. The Italians called it a salt hit. The ultimate betrayal. Kill a friend for money. On the night he was betrayed, Jesus would take 3 items. Yes, he would take the bread and the juice, but he would also take the towel. And he asked us to remember all 3. Remember the juice, remember the bread, remember the towel, because they are going to remind you of this occasion of the sacrifice that heaven has bestowed for each of you. He asked us to take them in remembrance, and so we will today. In Matthew 5:13, and I don't have it on the screen, it's a verse that you know well, Jesus proclaimed that his people, his followers, he said, "You are to be the salt of the world. You are my salt." We seem to be a contradiction, or at least I'm a contradiction. We'll see if you are also. A contradiction. Remember, although Judas betrayed Christ, all the disciples abandoned Jesus and ran away. Did they not? They all ran. All of them were salt spillers. Judas did not respond well to spilling the salt. And so likewise, all of us are salt spillers. We all sin. We all come up short. We all spill the salt. How can I be? Jesus says, "Ye are the salt of the world." Well, that doesn't make. How can I be salt when I keep spilling the salt? We will have the answer when we return to the sanctuary. But right now we're going to separate for the ordinance of humility. We will first take the towels. Ladies, a hallway to the left, and the rooms are going to be prepared for you that direction. Men and couples, the hallway to the right. You're going to be prepared there to take up the towel. If you do not wish to participate, if you did not come prepared, we invite you to stay right here in the sanctuary. Listen to the music. We'll be back in a few minutes. We have open communion. That means all of you can celebrate. We're glad to have each of you here today. But at this time, as individuals who spill the salt, let's go and enjoy this service of humility, and then we'll come back enjoying the supper together as we find out just how in the world can salt spillers be the salt of the world. We'll separate at this time.